Welcome back. This month, the Office of the Undersecretary of Defense for Research and Engineering announced the adoption of a new standard designed to make software work better for soldiers and minimize risks to cost, schedule, and performance. Chris DeLuca is Director of Specialty Engineering in the Office of the Undersecretary of Defense for R&E. Chris, welcome. Good to see you, sir.
I appreciate you having me here today.
So take me back in time, even before these standards were a glimmer in your eye. What was that lightning bolt to inspiration? Why did you undertake this effort in the first place?
Well, we are, first of all, focused on the soldier. And right now, we're focused on putting advanced technology into the hands of our warfighters as quickly as possible. But to do that, we have to build their trust. And when we put it in their hands, we'd like it to be ready for them. We've been participating in this development of this standard since 2021.
Oh.
The Navy actually sat on the committee that developed the standard. The services, along with OSD, were part of the group that reviewed the standard before it was issued. In the intervening years, we've been involved in assessing it, but not adopting it till this point. At this point, the senior leadership decided it was time to formally adopt it, give it that level of credibility, and start to push it out there at the level of our technology readiness assessments and our manufacturing readiness assessments.
Chris, I mentioned at the top two, I'll call them broad goals: minimize risk and improve mission outcomes. You know, aligning people to those two fits a lot of different technological areas. I think cybersecurity, right off the bat. You don't want to slow things down, but you certainly want to make them more secure. Talk about those two broad goals and how HRLs might improve both those functions.
If you apply the HRLs early, you're looking at opportunity, not risk. You're evaluating what your failure modes might be, what your hazards might be, and you're either designing the system for the warfighter, human-centered design, or you're deciding on mitigations that might be applied for what will become risks and issues to them, where you can't design it in, or later on, when you find that you have a hazard that you didn't know about, design it out.
I was reading in the press release that R&E put out relative to human readiness levels that you took a lot of cues from the 1970s, work that NASA was doing on technology readiness levels. Could you marry those two together for me? Tell me what you learned from NASA's effort and maybe what you had to spin up from scratch, because I'd imagine, you know, while there are some similarities between those two mission sets, OUSD's mission set is very different from NASA's mission.
I would not say that. We work very closely with NASA. As a matter of fact, NASA was part of developing this standard as well. The idea of understanding your user and creating something that's more intuitive, more habitable for your user, those things that NASA has to do for its astronauts in space, we have to do for our warfighters in their warfighting space.
What about early in the design process? I mean, you're an engineer by trade, Chris. Is that one of the key goals of HRLs, is to get them right in there at the foundation level?
That's absolutely true. As I mentioned earlier, the idea is seizing the opportunity to design in the features that are best for the user, and if you happen to know about failure modes or hazards or defects, design those out as early as possible. The later you wait in the process, the more expensive it's going to be. The discovery might be somebody's life or a mission failure. You don't want those things to happen. You want to try and get in front of those.
One of my favorite phrases in the release that OUSD R&E put out, I'm going to read it off here: the Human Factors Ergonomics Society. What is that? It sounds like you worked pretty closely with them. What did you learn from the Human Factors Ergonomics Society, sir?
So the Human Factors Ergonomics Society, which includes folks from DOD, the rest of the federal government, industry, and academia, provide a huge body of knowledge about the human, first of all. Next, they apply the American National Standards Institute process for developing a standard. We marry those two up and we come out with a usable standard that can be generally applied to different use cases.
The Army has started using HRLs. Could you talk about that initial adoption, how it's going, or what you're hearing about it, and maybe what it could lead to? What will that germinate for the department overall?
We've reached out not only to the Army but to the other services to see what their experiences have been. They have all come back and said that early application is the most important application of the standard. Later on in the process, it becomes more difficult to take what you learn and apply it. However, later on in the process, you've learned stuff that where your capability is somehow decremented by what you learn. So while what you learn might become more expensive to correct, you still have to do it. So it's sort of a double-edged sword. Again, what we have learned from surveying the services is early application is very important.
The Army is such a large organization with a lot of different components. Was it challenging to make sure that they were all marshaled in the right direction relative to human readiness levels, or did you have sort of a single point of contact in there that was kind of the Army champion for helping to push this out?
There is an Army champion for HRLs. As a matter of fact, there's a group that specifically supports human systems integrations assessments for the Army. They work with us and the other services in the Joint Human Systems Integration Working Group, which works for the steering committee of the DOD for human systems integration. So this year, the steering committee told us to focus on adopting this standard. The working group, this year led by the Navy, championed us doing this adoption. But what we took were lessons learned from the Army. And by the way, the Air Force is building a decision tool from this standard.
Wow.
That uses both the technology readiness levels and the human readiness levels and provides a decision tree. So we're starting to get that energy out there. That energy has to come first from our centralized practitioners and the leadership. This adoption, giving the standard credibility, will help us push it out to the rest of the practitioners, to the programs, and the leadership.
How do you hope that the other services ultimately will use this for measurement, Chris, to measure risk, to measure outcomes? How can they take HRLs and put tangible, numbers-based stuff against it?
So if you're starting early, it helps you plan your activities throughout the rest of your program and resource them. But you know, today we're getting a lot of prototypes or products that are off the shelf that we in the government, or DOD, haven't seen before. Now, this is a commercial standard. That helps reduce a barrier. Anybody bringing a product to us that might be a prototype or something that we might start to use off the shelf, if they can bring to us evidence that they've met at least HRL 6, ready for development, or maybe an HRL 8, which is ready to be used in an operational environment initially, then we would be better off getting that evidence instead of having to go out and discover it ourselves. Also, early in a program, or even if we get a prototype later, it helps us decide what to test. Testing is expensive and it takes time. Being able to focus on the risks and the issues and the things that are most important to the mission for the human can be guided by the HRL.
Chris DeLuca, Director of Specialty Engineering, OUSD R&E. Chris, thanks so much, sir.